So yeah, been keeping bees out here for probably 14 years now, and done a couple talks here before, and I find it's best if people just ask what they want to know, and then I don't end up just telling a bunch of stuff that you don't care about or aren't interested in. So yeah, any questions? First and foremost, I'd like to point out that first thing with beekeeping is good electric fencing. And it doesn't even have to be, it's relatively cheap, a couple $100, you know, for a charger, and then your fencing, it's like you can get set up relatively cheap for keeping the bear out of your bees, because they do like the honey, and most of all they like the brood, which is the baby bee, so they just scatter all your equipment, eat all your stuff, and then picking angry bees out of the grass is no fun at all. And I just thought I'd let everyone know too, I've got a bit of a dental emergency going on, so if I look angry or anything, any questions, it's not you guys. So yeah, the electric fencing is first and foremost. The first year I got bees, there's just so much going on. It was just such a, you know, I live out of town about 7 clicks or so, and I put them in the perfect spot until late in the season when I realized that was right in front of the bear trail. So learned firsthand just you know what happens with bears and bees, and got the fencing in. Haven't had a problem since. And the fencing is great because you can put your compost over there, or your chickens or your ducks or anything, and yeah, it works like a charm.
So what, like, have you made this fencing yourself? Like,
You just, I got mine from Ferris Fencing. I just called them up, and then and they had it here in days, and they kind of knew what other people were using on the island. And then my charger went down, and they're great because you can plug it right into the wall. You can use solar panels or batteries. Then my charger went down last year, and I was like, oh, here we go. And I just got it from it's a Share Care. They had chargers there in Port. Is that the pet food place? Yeah. So they have chargers there, relatively inexpensive ones. And I run mine with, I mean, it's worked fine for the bears, but I use the poultry netting, because I've heard stories about the bears doing like the ballerina moves through the wires kind of thing. So I got the poultry net, and it seems to work really good, because even if they get close, they kind of can't play around it too much.
You mean like chicken wire?
It looks like it's mesh, yeah. So it's good. Probably heard the story before if you've been here, but I had the chickens in there once, and then the chickens actually could figure out the pulse of the fence. So they'd wait by the fence, and then right when the fence, they'd sneak right through. It was pretty good. And yeah, no, the fencing is really important, and it's another story I'll get to be soon. But the dog went over to, and it doesn't hurt, I get charged by it all the time, but the dog went over to see the chickens when they first came, and she got zapped by the fence. Every time the chickens would escape, she'd go running with her tail between her legs, because she thought that they were the ones that had the power, right? So bees, it's a really difficult area to keep bees just with our moisture and stuff, but it's not that difficult either. So it's just this year especially is a little bit of a rough one, just with the way the 57 days of atmospheric precipitation. Noah built his ark after 4 days.
When you say precipitation's an issue, is it because of like fungus growth and all?
Yeah, and just they just don't do well with moisture, so you gotta just have the hives nice and dry. Like they did studies, I think, where they took clusters of bees in the winter, they form a cluster, and then the ones on the outside shiver, and they keep the nest at like 90-some Fahrenheit all winter, and then when the ones on the outside get cold, they morph to the middle, and the ones from the middle, so they just keep the nest at that thing. So they took a cluster of bees and put them in like minus 50 Celsius with no hive, no problem. They put them in with just some moisture, and yeah, so it's not a big deal. You just have to make sure that try to keep everything dry. They're a lot like any type of gardening. Some years are great and you do everything wrong and it's awesome, and then you do everything right, and then you lose a bunch of bees. That's, I mean, keeping bees, you're gonna lose bees along the way, just like anything. So some years spinach bolts or
and but you're sorry,
no.
Okay. Sorry, what I was gonna ask is do you live in Ucluelet? Like, is there an issue with keeping bees, raising bees in town? Is there any bylaws?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, like, if you're a man, like, who knows, right, what people get, but right now there's not, and that's, I wouldn't worry about it. Like other people, I think, everywhere else are, I think they're encouraging that, like, you know, even in like resorts and hotels are putting them on their roof and things. There's a couple things you can do, like, you've heard of the bee line thing, where the bees fly out in a straight line and they all work that line, so you can change their flight course. So if you've got your neighbors are like right there, you put up a piece of plywood, they're gonna plywood, they're gonna go up and way over and then branch out over like 2 square kilometers or circular kilometers kind of thing, and then come back. So you can, you know, you can keep them out of your neighbors just by getting them up and into the air.
Cool.
Question about last year.
Yeah.
As you know, probably everyone knows, we had an incredible fruit production year.
Mm-hmm.
Like every fruit tree, it seemed like up and down the coast here. And one explanation I heard was that we had all that nice dry weather in the middle of winter.
Exactly.
From like January on, was that was the difference in that the bees were out
They
and
got to get,
and pollinated, and the pollen didn't get washed off.
they got a chance to get out. See, it's been a real, like, last year was good for that, because it was cold and dry, but if the temperatures can get close to 10 degrees on a couple days, they can get out. And usually through the winter, anytime it's warm, they do cleansing flights. So they just all go out and go to the bathroom and go back in kind of thing. And so this year's been really bad because they haven't been out since November, which I've never seen before. Usually they're out, like, even in December they'll get out for a day, but they've been locked down since November. The problem with that is that with the moisture they get this midgut fungus called nosema, and so they're stuck inside, and then if one of them kind of goes to the bathroom inside, there's 2 billion spores right there, and then it just mops out hives pretty quick. So I think last year was good. I've really noticed this year that they haven't been able to, they're still there because I check on them, but they haven't been able to get out for those cleansing flights. But yeah, you're probably right, and especially early on, those are all early blossoms too, so there's not a lot of, like, if the blackberry was in, they'd ignore the fruit trees altogether because they kind of like pick one mass target when they're in bloom, and they'll go get other stuff for like flavoring or something like that. They're kind of, but yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, even on the lighthouses, it's the same thing, like their fruit trees just produce like they've never seen.
It'll be interesting to see this year.
Yeah. Huh.
So when you're saying that they would choose blackberries over fruit trees, and everybody's encouraging us to plant flowers, so what's the best thing to plant that's good for the whole system?
Well, for the bees, anything that flowers really, like the blackberries only come for like 2 weeks, and that's just that's the main honey flow out here. But so they'll go to things all year long. But the best things to plant are the things that like come up really early and then really late in the season when there's nothing else like happening. Like right now, like a lot of the stuff, the wild stuff, they like the willows are like their first, and then the heathers, they go to the heathers. You wouldn't think so. Apparently, like, you could get a lot of heather honey. It's really good. But yeah, I find like heathers, kind of the pinky heathers are a really good one early in the spring. And then nasturtiums are good. They'll go really late, like kind of when the natural stuff starts going. But anything you can, but the early blooms and the late blooms are kind of the key. When I first started, I had this area about this big. I had my wildflower seeds all, it's like pretty, and then I realized that, or learned that they forage over like 2 circular kilometers, right? And I had it all, I was like, that's going to be perfect for them. I don't think any of those flowers actually grew. But and then last year I learned too, what do they call them? I always call them, they're not lupins, they're people, apparently medicinal. They're those plants that kids wrap up and shoot the tops off at each other.
Oh yeah.
Plantain.
Yeah.
They love the plantain. I used to mow it down thinking, so some dandelions would come up. Go out, and they only go out, it's weird, early in the morning when the dew's on. I don't know if the nectar's flowing. Go out like early in the morning when you not even think they're flying, and all of a sudden, it's, what's going on? It's just, and yeah, they love, and they can feed off that for like months at a time before the flower actually. Yeah, they're getting pollen from it as well. It's a really good one for if you have a weedy yard. It's a good weed to keep.
Interesting. How many hives do you keep?
I like to go into winter with 10, and then if I can, I usually just schedule and just all that, and yeah, and space. Otherwise, it'd be like I'd rather just hang out with like 100 of them, but I usually try to go in with like somewhere between 10. It all depends on how like my splits work in the spring, and then in the spring you're left with whatever's left, kind of thing.
And how much honey do you usually collect on a
Last year I didn't take any. Some years, you know, you can get 20 pounds off a hive. Like in a lot of the agricultural areas, like, you know, where there's like, you know, no trees and no water and a lot of like source for food, they can pull 100 pounds off a hive, no problem. But yeah, last year was weird because I don't know if it was just like, it's probably what you were talking about, just timing with the weather. Is just the main honey flow didn't happen, so things were pretty sparse, so I didn't even bother taking any honey off them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anything about beekeeping, so I kind of wanted to know everything about it, and I was expecting that. So, yeah, like, I don't know if other people want to know, but how do you set up, and how much, what's the amount of work that you, or hours that you have to invest in?
Yeah, there's two ways to get started. You can either like, you got to get your bees first, so you can catch a swarm, which, or have them just living next door. And so you could catch a swarm, like, so if I don't know if you're familiar with swarming, it's the way bees reproduce. So the old queen rears a daughter queen, takes half of her workers and half their food and goes and gets a new spot and leaves kind of the estate to the daughter queen, and that's how they split. So when they do that, they'll go out in a big mass of bees, you can hear them over a chainsaw, and then they'll land in a branch, in a ball, and stay there for a day or two. If you ever see that, just grab them and put them in a box, like snip the branch, put them in a box, or shake them off into a box and take them home. But you can order packaged bees, and if you're gonna do that, you want to go to like someone on the island, someone that's got bees that are familiar with the area. You can order them from New Zealand and stuff, but also it's good to stick close to home. It's like in the old days when the ferry said no bees allowed on the ferries. We were varroa mite free, which is a nasty little bee pest, for years and years, and then one guy in the 80s brought his bees over on the ferry, and yeah, it ruined it for everybody. We could have been a huge bee producing place because we were the only place, one of the only places in the world that didn't have the mite yet, right? That's why they used to always do those signs. But so find someone on the island. There's lots of, especially on the east side, lots of people that's what they do is sell bees, and you can either get a package of bees, you can get them in the mail. It's really fun. The post people call you right away. It's like, get your bees. It's a box of bees with a screen and a queen in there, and you dump them in your hive. I'll tell you about the hives in a bit. And they're starting from scratch, so they don't have like any of the infrastructure going. So it takes a lot of work for them to like start building their combs and all that stuff. But if you buy a nucleus colony, they call them nukes, which is, it sounds, I don't know, people's got weird terms, but it's like basically, when I was talking about the swarm, it's basically like making a swarm for them. So the beekeeper will take a frame of bees with eggs, and then a frame of like different stages of brood, which are the baby bees developing, then a frame of food, or a couple frames, extra frames of bees, and then the laying queen. So that'll cost you like maybe like 40 or 50 bucks extra, but those things will blow up. Like you get one of those, you've got basically a mini colony, and in 2 months you can just split those into more colonies. And so they don't have to wait that 20 some days from the first egg for the first hatch while trying to bring in food and build comb, because it takes 10 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax, so it's a lot of work for them. So if you buy a nucleus colony, it'll come in a little box, and all you do is pick the frames out and transfer them into the box. And you can buy all the equipment for beekeeping, but it's super like anything else, but it's so easy to make. You don't have to be a carpenter or anything, just kind of guess the measurements. Well, get the measurements and then get them close. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll read about how the bees need like perfect bee space, which is where like if anything's bigger than a bee, they build wax. And if anything's smaller than the bee, they build it and seal it up with propolis, which is bee glue. It's supposed to be good for you for stuff, for teeth. Yeah, so you just build your boxes. You have a bottom board, which is kind of what the box sits on. You can have entrance on there for them to go in and out. I use all top entrances on mine because then the moisture out here, everything goes up and out, so it keeps when they're respirating or whatever it is. But yeah, you just have a box and it has a little piece of wood like that. Like really easy. Anyone can build them themselves, and you can buy them too, and they're probably a lot. I don't know, but yeah, you can Mickey Mouse them out of scraps of wood, no problem. They work just as good. So, so once you get over that, your bees will probably they've gone up a bit in price. It looks like, just I guess, but you know, I think $140 you could get a new colony. But then once you got that going, then you can, you know, swarm season comes and you have to kind of, you don't want, like you were saying, like your neighbors kind of thing, you don't want your swarms like escaping. First off, they're bees that like they need help getting through this day and age. Like it's pretty rare that there's wild bees out there doing okay. It does happen though, but you don't want swarms going off into the bed and breakfast drywall beside you in the middle of summer in July, right? When people, that's when the rules are going to change. So before swarm season,
How do you control where they go when they swarm?
well, they'll start rearing. They got a swarm impulse going on, and they'll start making queen cells, which are like you've seen, like if you've seen pictures of like the bee comb, like the little things, but they're usually flat, and the male ones are little, but they'll raise queen cells, and they'll look like peanuts hanging off, peanut shells hanging off the frame, and they'll make one or two if like the queen gets hurt just as an emergency, but they'll start making like 20 of them. So as soon as you like see that, then you're like, you know that they're planning to move. So you basically make a nuke out of them. You take each frame that has a queen cell, put it in the box, give it a frame of eggs, and a frame of brood, and a frame of food. And if you have a bunch of them, you can make. I've made like 5 out of one hive one year, and then those queen cells will hatch, go out and mate, and come back, and you have a new hive. And then the old queen, she thinks she swarmed, so she stays. Yeah, so it's like a. Yeah, you just trick her into thinking she swarmed and she's stoked because she doesn't have to go off and find a new spot. But you don't want to. A lot of people, like I'm totally into let nature do its thing and stuff. But just like when you're in the, and swarms are totally harmless. Like they're full of honey, and they're not defending their hive. Like most swarm collectors don't wear any gear or anything like that. And so it's not a bad thing, but it's just like people. There's some people that, won't be like, wow, look at all those bees in the yard gathering on the swing set, That's cool. Yeah. They were gonna get some bees out at the school there, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's not a good idea. School garden, just in case, We can't put peanut butter in the lunch, so we should maybe just be careful. But I mean, bees are really gentle. I don't think I got stung last year at all. And I mean, like I'm going through, like I'll go out and look through. I don't try to bug them too much, but I'll go out there for fun, and hang out with them. Or you can take and pet them like a cat almost. Like they're really cool.
They get used to you, right?
They do. And then who was telling me? I don't remember. I guess if you move, I don't know, was it a book or something? Never mind. If you move really slow, then they can barely see you because their minds are just like super intelligent, right? So if you're moving slow, they're moving so fast that you're like super slow. If you move really slow, they think you're a statue. So if you're like just not being like, that's it. But there is sometimes you think you got, the worst is when you leave your bee suit out in the yard and it gets those earwigs in it. And you put it on, and you're in the bees, and it's like, and that's when you start doing stuff like that. So don't leave your suit in the grass. But usually when you're done, you just, I always take it off and leave it outside the sun, bring any bees inside, but I don't know where it is.
Do you have to have a bee suit?
No.
You don't wear anything? Like any?
I always wear I don't like them on my face just when I'm doing stuff, just because I didn't know I was allergic when I first started keeping them. So I got stung up pretty good, and one time when I was learning, because I you make mistakes at first, right? Like, so I got stung up pretty good. I was running across the yard. I think the neighbors were over to watch me do my big beekeeping debut. I had him in the trailer after the mom picked him up from the bear because with the windows, which didn't work because there was not enough light in there, but I left them all standing there with an open hive, was running across the yard. But I like big blisters and stuff all over, so it was a pretty good reaction. And then the next time I started getting stung, now it's like I'd rather get stung by a bee than bitten by a black fly any day. So you do build up in like, but that can go either way, like anything. But yeah, I kind of like, I like having just the face mask on so I can focus. But a lot of people don't. You don't need to. Yeah. I mean, they don't sting. They're not like well, I guess they're the same species, but they're not generally like very ornery at all. So they're not like, people, the killer bee thing where you make them mad, they all attack you. One will come out and like tag you and be like, get out of here, you're making us mad, and if that doesn't work, but it's like, they're not going to be like, they'd be like, for the most part, unless you're like, keep bothering them too, right? And they're really, that's what I like about bees, like they'll let you know when they don't want you around. There's no like mental games going on trying to figure out, you know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing wrong? Oh, you'll find out. They let you know if they're grumpy at you, and a lot of times they'll just bounce off you at first, like for a while before they actually sting, because they don't want to sting you because they die, right? So.
Oh, they die every time
If they sting, yeah. So that's I like the honeybees are pretty gentle, and so they'll only sting if they think they're fighting for the rest of them. They're really neat animals. Like they'll go out and die instead of die in the hive, so the nurse bees and other not nurse bees, but the younger cleaner bees don't have to drag them out of the hive and throw them up in front. They'll fly off and die just so that the community doesn't have to do the work, That's cool. Yeah, pretty neat. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for just small scale efforts? Because I have a rooftop deck.
Perfect.
We don't actually have a yard.
That's
we
perfect.
have some planter boxes, but is there some way of making like something small, just not to really beekeep, but just
Oh, okay.
to
I thought you said that's a perfect spot to put a hive
Is
up on
it?
my deck. Oh, yeah, it works great. Yeah.
And so would it be like how?
The size of a box is probably like, but you can make them even smaller. But if the bees start expanding, then you have to split them but you can always find a home for a beehive, no problem. Bring them to my house. Take them. Yeah. So any type of flowers, or I know you probably wouldn't need to do it out here. A lot of other places people make like bee waterers and stuff. But I think out here they like the dew in the morning or the neighbors' wetsuits, or it's funny they love the sea salt and then the sea asparagus flowers walking down by the water. I'm like, what's going on? They're all down like it's basically almost a seaweed, and so they like the micronutrients of the salt. But yeah, any sort of flowers or if you do have any yard, to keep the weeds kind of going, like the dandelions and any of those type of things. Or just, but a porch is a perfect spot. And I mean, like that would be a great spot for mason bees, right? Because they're like excellent pollinators, and then they take up no space at all. Like so, you'd be doing more pollinating with a little mason bee hive than you would with probably a honeybee hive. You just wouldn't be getting the honey, which is a lot of work, and sometimes you don't get any anyway. So it's kind of
So mason bees are equally as helpful to.
Oh, they're more efficient as pollinators.
And are they less work? Not that
There's
this
no
sounds
work.
like they're no work.
Yeah.
Like that.
They're no work.
I'll
Yeah.
buy somebody else's money.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and your question about how much it's kind of as much as you want kind of thing. There's a couple swarm season in the spring. You want to be on top of that so you don't lose your bees, and because they're it's like I could lose $200 worth of bees, or now I could have $400 worth of bees, so you want to keep your swarms. So there's swarm season, and then treating in the fall for mites and other maladies, depending on what's going on with the hive's health. So
And how do you do that?
Yeah.
for the mites,
Yeah.
well, yeah, the mites are just awful, and they'll destroy a hive fast. And they're like little vampires. For a bee, it would be like having a vampire-sized rat or 3 or 4 feeding on you when you're in the womb to start out with, and they just disease vectors and all this stuff. So they started out treating them with fluvatane, which is basically like the old school flea medication, or the stuff they use in jail when they throw people come on like for lice and stuff. A similar type of a thing, but the mites built the resistance up to it, and then they had super mites, and all that stuff is going into the honey and the wax, so it's just not good. I use formic acid, which is the stuff ants sting with, and I use liquid formic acid, and it's brutal stuff because you get it in your eyes, you're blind. If you breathe it in, you can't breathe anymore. But it's present in the hive, and it's present in honey. They use it in food all the time for stuff. So it's an organic acid concentrate. And out here, like they sell it as like a mite treatment in like a little cube you put in your hive over like 6 weeks. But out here, the temperatures are just, it has to be like it's 20, like certain temperature. So over that, the way our temperatures go, you can't rely on it to be like a constant temperature for like 6 weeks. So I do a formic flash treatment. It's like four times, like once a week in the fall, and so I'll take, like, depending on the temperature, 20 mils, 25. You can play around with. There's as long as you don't put too much in there, it's pretty good on too much of the. But then I put it on fold up a paper towel, and then I lift up the box and slide it underneath, and then that formic acid flashes. The bees all come and they fan it out right away. They know how to deal with it. It's already present in the hive. It's gone in like 5 or 6 hours, and it just takes its toll on the mites. But it doesn't hurt the bees. I mean, you can, if it went, it's like anything, like, if you take too much of something, you're gonna have, I mean, I wish that I could go treatment free, but I tried that, and I was like, wow, my bees are doing awesome. I got like 15 hives here, I'm gonna go treatment free. And then it was like, that's only the second time I think I had to, in 14 years, I've only had to buy bees twice, so.
Wow.
So I'm kind of, the treatment free thing is like awesome, it just didn't work for me. And I tried to work up to it with breeding and stuff like that. It just, so the mites, they just can't, like, everyone's trying to get mite resistant bees, and it's just, you need to keep on top of the mites. It's, the formic acid is what I use. You can also use oxalic acid in a little vaporizer, and buy this little vaporizer. You could probably make one, and it's just like you put the oxalic acid crystals. You can get that stuff at the pharmacy. But I bought some when I first started. I got a big jar of oxalic acid. I'm never going to use probably, but you just put that under the hive and hook it up to a 12-volt battery. It does the same thing. Just lets out all these. Just vaporizes, and then the bees fan it out, and the mites drop. So. Yeah.
And do you do that like once the mites are already there, or is like to prevent them to? Like, is there anything that you can do to prevent the mites from coming, or maybe even working with a different wood?
Well, I ran into this lady at the beach. Can't remember where she was from. She was visiting from somewhere, and she said her dad used to use. In the winter would put, there's a whole bunch of different things you can knock, like keep the mites kind of going through the summer, but it's all kind of like, some people I think do okay, like you can powder sugar dust them, and the mites have little suction cups, and the microns of the powder sugar make them so they can't hang on, and then they fall down. But this lady was telling me that her grandpa or something when she was a kid, would always stack the hives on the top inside the hive before winter with bracken ferns. And I was thinking about it, and then when I looked into bracken ferns, they're really high in oxalic acid content, so almost the same type of thing. And you can split the mites or knock the mites down, like when you do your splits, you're breaking the brood cycle, so the mites at a certain age go into that bee cell before it's capped to lay eggs in there when it's capped off. So when you break the brood cycles, you got your laying queen here, now you've got a queen that needs to hatch and go out and mate and come back, and that's like a month of no eggs being laid, then it really messes up the mites' timing, because they can't complete their cycle. So breaking the brood cycle is a huge way. You can also do drone trapping. So the males in bees are useless apparently. They're only there for one purpose, because all they do is eat honey and do no work. So in the fall, you'll see when the weather gets just right, the bees, all the males get stuck outside, they won't let them in. They all left outside to freeze to death because they don't want them sitting around in the winter eating all the honey and doing no work, right? So they're only around for breeding season. But there is a thing you can do called drone trapping. So you got the drones are the males, and they build into like bigger cells, which the mites love because there's room to lay more eggs, and the drones actually cap over. Is it earlier or later? Anyways. But so the drone cells are bigger, and the mites will always go to drones first if they can. So if you can get a drone, and the bees like to put the drones on the outside of the nest, which makes sense, the last to the dinner table, and then or on the edges, and maybe that's because their cells are bigger and they need a bit more room or something. So if you can get a drone frame, like in a really healthy hive, they'll make one frame that's all just drones. So if you get one of those and you save it, I don't like to do this. This is how I got stung the first time, because I was trying to cut out the drones, and when I should have just, anyways, that was a learning curve. But you can take the drone frame out, put a drone frame in to lure all the mites into that frame. They'll start rearing drones. You have to time it perfect, because if you I gotta go to work for a week and don't look, and they hatch, then you've just almost doubled your mite problem. But if you time it right, which is easy, it's just a certain number of days, it's like easy math. And then you pull that out, and then you put it in the freezer, feed it to the chickens, and then most of the mites will be in those drones. So that's a really good organic kind of approach.
So the mites they literally hatch with the drones, or
all the bees?
The
yeah,
bees are, yeah, so they only, okay. So the mites.
But they prefer the drones because they can go in there and lay 6 eggs, where when they're in the female cells, they can only lay like 2 or 3, just because of that.
Right. So the mites have to wait for the bees to hatch.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they come out with two or 1 or 2 go in, and then 5 or 6 come out. So they can like just explode in numbers.
Yeah.
Can you see them? The
Yeah.
mites?
Yeah. I mean, like, it takes especially if you're knocking them down. It's like I can find them pretty quick if they're there. Like you start realizing what they look like. But if you're starting to see them, it's time to start thinking, or at least do number testing, because the mites die like anything. So if you put a board of like white paper underneath, and then every day or leave it 3 days and pull that out, there's a little calculation you can do to find out how many just sporadically died, and drop down to see what your population is in there. So you can test that way. But yeah, if you're seeing mites, it means that you got an issue. And the problem is if you're treating for mites, you want to do it like August, everyone wants to wait till like the last thing of the year, but it's those late September and October bees that are going to be your winter bees. So you want to make sure that those ones are going in without all the different viruses. And you can tell if there's mite problem too, because the bees will have either their wings will be chewed, or they get a curly wing virus where their wings are just like not even there. So it's really sad to see. Or I've seen with mite infestation too before, they'll be like on the grass jumping, trying to fly, but something's wrong, and the mites carry so many different diseases, it's crazy. And they're specific to honeybees, the varroa mites. It's not like you can see bumblebees with mites on it, but they're totally different mites. And some of them are beneficial to them, so it's like you can see the mites. But if you do see them, it's time to start just making sure that you're on top of it and see what their numbers are.
Is that what's destroying all the bees in the wild?
It's a big player there, yeah. I think that a lot of that too is just like, all the forage and stuff is getting taken over for just different real estate kind of, and then pesticides, of course, are major. But out here it's pretty clean, so the mites, the pesticides, and the lack of forage is pretty much it.
And besides the mites, like you said about the mold, no? Yeah, like other complications that you might find year long?
Yeah, well, the nosema fungus is out here because of the moisture is a big one. There are a couple like foul brood and stuff which I've never come across, which is a bad one because it stays in the soil for like 60 years. So if you get that one, you kind of got it's kind of shut down shop there. Unless you want to treat with antibiotics forever, but then you put that in your wax and honey, and stuff. But other than that, no, it's pretty, the big issues with like what goes wrong is like no seam is easy to deal with. You have another fungus that eats that fungus that you put in their food in the fall, and then they're good. I didn't do that this year. I don't know why I got sidetracked, but it's weird because yeah, the main problems you're going to run into is like you go queenless or something like that. So you got to wait to rear a queen, or you know, or the bees don't get enough food and you got to supplement them with food or something like that, and they don't. And so yeah, the health problems aren't. The mites are the main thing, because the mites cause most of all the other things that come along, other than the no-seam out here, I find. Yeah.
Which are the cost of having like how much do you spend on your bees? Like,
Nothing.
Is it nothing? Like with all these treatments and everything?
Well, yeah, well, that's not a gallon, 4-liter jug of formic acid. That's maybe why it's like $25, and so that can go a long ways. Like when you're using 20 mils at a time. So, I mean, if you were to buy like the same stuff from the beekeeping company, all packaged up, then you're starting to, you know, it costs you like $40 to treat your hive, kind of thing. But you could treat a whole yard with a jug of formic acid, no problem. I don't know if you're like, it's the only way it works out here is fashion. But yeah, it's not expensive. It's not an expensive hobby, but you got to get, you know, you want a smoker, and of course it's like any hobby. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get myself a beater surfboard and learn to surf. Next thing you know, like half your paychecks on surfboards on your wall that you don't use, kind of thing. So yeah, bees are addictive. That's the one thing I'll tell people. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, but they're fun. They're fun.
And what's the regulation?
The regulation?
Is anybody allowed to do?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's when I first started, all the books. I mean, it depends on where you are. That's the thing. Is like someone's gonna eventually, you know, it happens all over the place. It's like certain places. One year someone gets in power, and then you're not allowed to have chickens. The next year that person's out of power, and everyone has to have chickens. And that type of thing. So when I first started, it was like I read the book that I had, and it was like, make sure you find out all the rules. So I called up Port Alberni, called up Port Alberni. I was like, because I'm in regional District C, right? And I'm like, how many beehives are you allowed to have in? Lots of people in Port have bees in their yards, right? How many beehives are you allowed to have in your yard? And she's like, I'll put you through to the planner. I was like, click. So there's no rules. I was like, I'm just going to go and see if I can get grandfathered in here as long as I can. I mean, like, it's good to check or whatever, but as far as I know, there's no real, like, people aren't trying to encourage that type of thing, you know? It's like, you know, and it's not like you're going to, like people, I know some people have allergies, and that's like a thing, but I mean, someone has allergies to yellow jackets, or like I said, peanut butter, or just, you know, so it's not, you know, and you can get insurance if you want through the collective. There's the Bee Scene magazine that you can get Beekeepers Insurance, and it's dirt cheap. Like you buy the subscription to the magazine in like $20, and they have as a collective can have like an insurance type of thing.
Just for the costs there for the electric fencing.
Yeah.
So I was able to get some funding from the regional district, and this year, started it last year, and this year again I'll be able to subsidize half the cost.
See, that's amazing.
Of electric fencing. You know, I've got limited funds, but putting word out there that if people want electric fencing.
And it's so good for like everything. Like,
yeah,
you know, like I got bees and all the stuff over there. My buddy was going teaching somewhere, so I let him park his gutted camper with nothing in it, like just a shell. Bear goes in, checks what's in there, rips the door off and looks around. Doesn't go anywhere near the bees. Yeah, so they're like, you should, anyone that's interested should take advantage of that.
And
So.
I set up this morning just a very simple fence on the lawn.
A demonstration?
Yeah, it's just so you can see what it looks like. But that's just a simple, comes in a duffel bag, and
and they're not that expensive. Like it's
not that expensive and super effective.
Yeah,
like the bears just really
they don't like
electricity at all.
And it's funny because it's not that much of a shock.
No.
The first time I got it though, I forgot to turn it off and was stepping over it, and then I was stuck inside and being, I was,
Yeah.
how to get back out. But it doesn't, I'll test mine just to see if it's working, but, you know, it's just like, I get shocked more at work all the time, worse doing things, so.
I built some for, when I was working in the Arctic to protect the walrus meat caches for the Inuit hunters.
Oh, that would have been high voltage,
But
those
they were
ones.
super afraid of electric fencing.
Oh, okay.
And the only way I got them to agree to let me build the fencing was I had to take a charger into the
Take
Hunter
the
Trapper
hit.
Organization meeting. And I said, I'm only gonna do this once, and then I grabbed both
Well-
leads, and of course your hands fly off.
Well, that would be super high voltage, those ones, wouldn't it? Because
And-
you're dealing with,
It's the same voltage actually.
Oh, is it?
They're all pretty much the
really?
same.
Yeah, because I think mine, for
Yeah.
the bears, what do you want, like 8,000 or more? Or?
Yeah, 8, 9, if you
12.
get a plug-in charger, it's like 13.
Yeah, the plug-in's
But
good.
you can get solar ones that put out 9 plus.
Yeah.
And
What did they do when you got shot?
they thought that was the funniest thing. But they said okay.
It's probably a new pastime. Everyone.
Yeah, but it kept the polar bear, like deterred 16 different polar bears.
Yeah, and those are
Outside.
big creatures.
Yeah. There's one that was well over 1,000 pounds. so,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they just
were.
don't like it. And now I never did this, but I hear you're supposed to like I didn't want to do this. Didn't want to. Where they say put some peanut butter, and I was like, I don't
Yeah,
want to beat them
no.
in, and yeah, I was like,
You
that's
don't
kind of
need
like,
to.
yeah, that's what I
You
was
don't
thinking. I was like,
Yeah.
that's just kind of drawing attention
Yeah.
right off the bat, being like,
Yeah, yeah. They will only do it once, but it's just not needed. Like, it seems like a lot of the bears actually sense the electrical field, like they don't even touch
and
it.
it's got that.
They get really, really close and they just, they can sense it. They don't want to have anything. to
It's
do.
weird because they're such big, magnificent creatures. Eh? You think that they'll go through anything to get food, and it's
Yeah,
they don't like electricity.
yeah, it's very simple.
So where do you get the suspension?
Yeah.
Is it receiver?
Yeah, so, if you come and see me over at the table there, I can give you my contact, but, I haven't quite started work for the season yet, but when I do, I'll be putting updates on the Facebook page, all the time, and you just look for Wild Safe BC Pacific Rim on Facebook, and you'll find the page.
I mean, it's great for like, there's beekeeping, but composting,
Yeah.
like any chickens or.
Chicken.
And they keeps the wolves and even everything else at bay too, like, we had wolves running around like crazy and they stay
Well,
out.
where you are, you're
Yeah, so we got the
you're the
corridor
super
right now.
highway there.
Yeah, they've
Every
been-
animal
they've
in
been
the
active.
country goes through your place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
The main thing, this happened at the exact same time last year, is it's a falcon or something that showed up and grabbed a couple ducks. And then, this year, at the exact same time, I was like, holy, those ducks did you good, because he looked really healthy this year, so.
yeah.
I threw a rock at him, but I wasn't trying to hit him.
Yeah.
He didn't come back this time, so it's,
Yeah.
but, you know. I wasn't trying to hit him. Yeah.
Are you in Port Albion?
Almost, end of Willowbrae on the inlet side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it kind of, I think you'd know better, I think they run up along the beaches from Long Beach and all the way over to Flow Bay, and then they
Yep.
come up Willowbrae Trail and then go into the mud flats out into Barkley Sound, so I think that's kind of their
Yeah, they pop over to Millstream, which gets
Yeah.
lots of activity.
low
and
tide, they can get
down
right
on
into
the
the
mud
whole.
flats there, and,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I never noticed I left all the trees in the back, so they kind of,
Yeah.
they just go through there and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So they don't hang around too much. You see them occasionally. The neighbor's dog goes and plays with the wolves a bit, and usually chases them off a bit. And,
Yeah.
How far is the spacing between the hives?
I've heard lots of different things. I put mine like this far apart from each
Okay.
other. Yeah, basically enough so that, and I work them from the back so that I'm not standing where the bees are coming in, and basically so you have enough room to move, but it's really handy to be able to like take a box and put it on like another hive or a lid or something like that upside down. So there's some sort of like, you ask a beekeeper 100 questions, 100 beekeepers, 100 questions, you get like 10,000 different answers, but I got no problem with them right beside each other. And even when you do your splits or your made swarms, they say you're supposed to move them 2 kilometers away or they all fly back. I don't do that either. They will drift back, but then if they do that, then you just switch hives, and if a bee flies out, it goes right back to where it starts. So if you have bees on this side that's full of bees, and this little struggling colony here, you just swap them, and then all the foragers come back to that original spot, and then it kind of evens everything right out.
How is your, like, can you picture out, like, how is your space set up? Like, is like a garden, like a cleared area? Or?
Yeah, it's like out in the yard. Yeah, so it's like I just, basically my bee area is just like I think I have like 64 feet of fencing, which is more than I need for them. Like you could have, basically you could each one of those chairs could be a beehive in the yard. Like that's how a lot of people operate. So like, I mean, if you had 2 hives, it would take up the space of those 2 chairs in front of you. And
Right. Can you stack them, like, you know?
I think you can, but that makes it, starts getting hard to work because you would have to dismantle the hive on top to get to the hive to the bottom, you know, and then so.
Right.
So if you had to do something on one hive, you'd have to go through with the other hive without.
Oh, because you can't make an access, like,
Yeah,
from the back, or just slide them out instead of.
probably could, yeah, you
Right.
probably could.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You got super creative
Yeah,
with
there you go.
beekeeping. Whatever works.
Yeah, but oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's,
Oh, it's okay, you can keep going.
I just had one question, like, because, is it true that, like, they're noise sensitive, like, if you have really loud machinery around the hives?
neighbors are always playing with their excavators and stuff. I don't even know what they're doing. It's just like, it's like a bunch of guys in the sand, or what's that, Duck Dynasty, Willowbrae style.
Yeah, right, right.
It's like little golf carts to drive from the house to the, but they're super good, but it doesn't seem to bother them. And I weed eat right around there, right up against the hive, and they don't pay any attention, so it doesn't seem to bug them too much. I think there's no intention.
Right, okay, cool.
I was late and missed the beginning,
That's
but
okay.
are you making honey?
The bees are. No, I'm just joking. No, you miss. Yeah, I do, but I didn't take any last year. It's all hit or miss on how the season works out.
Okay.
But yeah, the honey. Usually, we were talking about that. You can get up to like 20 pounds out here off a hive of bees, which is lots. Like that's like a, you know, pretty big. You can't go through that in a year, and maybe that's what's wrong with my teeth. Actually, I don't even eat the honey. It's my little guy. He'll eat it, but. I do.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how many hives you need to actually, like.
One, yeah, one, and sometimes one is probably can be even better. I would say go with 2 hives, because then if you have a problem, like you go queenless or anything, you can do Rubik's Cube, like you can take some eggs and give it to them, and they'll make a queen out of any egg that's less than 3 days old, just by depending on what they feed it. Because any egg can become a queen bee if they need it. But I'd say get 2 hives, because then if something happens, you're not trying to track someone down for something that you need,
Yeah.
and then get twice as much honey.
And
Yeah.
how often do you take the honey and, like, I don't know?
I mean, if you were in a real good honey zone, as soon as it's like filling up, because the bees don't like getting crowded, that's when they'll start, we're getting ready to swarm. Out here is like July and August is the, or in the spring, sometimes if you don't take any, they don't eat it in the winter, and then whenever you just want to make sure they have enough food to get through the winter, and then anything else is, you know, if you feel like it.
What's the, like, extraction process of?
You can just scrape it off and strain it, or you get it in a little centrifugal spinner, and it all flies up to the sides,
Oh,
and then
it
you
just,
pull
like,
that.
whips around.
Yeah, they're-
Nice.
Can you only start this in the spring?
No, anytime, like, I mean, swarm season out here is like late July, so you could start at any time. You just want to make sure that your bees are ready for winter with food and aren't going in with mites. And so anytime's fine. If you're ordering bees, for this year, you probably still could get on it. A lot of times, like, you don't want to wait till like summer to call, because if you call up, people are already sold out fairly early. But I mean, then once swarm season comes, like, I don't know how people in towns bees are doing right this year. I haven't really checked in, and this was a really rough year. Like, I lost a lot of bees. But it's weird too, because you know how the bees you see are kind of like the yellow, like honeybee looking? all my ones that were the lighter, because I always get 3 different queens. There's like tiger stripe ones, and then the really dark ones, and then the total like really, really light ones. All the lighter bees, something went weird with them. I think they got into no SEMA, just judging by how it's looking. And then all the bees that are like doing really good, well, the living ones, the living ones did great. They're all like a smoky kind of tawny color. I've never seen that before. All the survivors this year are a real darker looking honeybee. So it was kind of what's going on. But yeah, you can start any time of year. You just got to make sure that yeah, they're ready to go with food and stuff into the winter. I mean, you can supplement feed too, like, you know, that's.
And in winter, how often do you check the hives?
I go out there every couple nights with my flashlight and look in the. I lure them up so that I can see them in the winter by looking in at night through the top entrance. But you don't want to open. I don't open them. Like I won't open my bees for another just 3 weeks or so, unless I think it's like a. Sometimes if I'm pretty sure that there's a dead out, I'll take a look. But then a lot of times it's like, oh, we're still there, and just because you crack the seal, they seal up all everything for the winter with propolis, right? So. That's kind of like their insulation, and so you don't want to bust the seal open too much in the winter.
So it'd be like from November to now?
Yeah, late November to like, if it was a nice day in December, as long as it's around 10 degrees, no problem. If they're flying, you're fine to go in.
What about making a home for carpenter bees?
I got so many, I live in kind of a loggy cabin thing that's got so many kind of like I don't know anything about that because I always just leave like boards lying around the yard, and they work great, like old rotten and like any type of like old wood. Like I think they kind of make their own spots. I don't know much about carpenter bees, but I always leave like a pile of stuff lying around. That's why I'm an environmentalist now. I never picked up those. But like I have a couple piles where I just like, throw branches instead of just burning everything and having the yard all trimmed up neat and stuff like that. Or I won't pick up something, a project I started for 4 years, just leave it kind of, or just, I think for like any type of like the wild bees and stuff, like little, like those insect hotel kind of things you see, just, or even a pile of like a bunch of alder sticks all piled up works. It's amazing, like you get what the little spot, like how much life comes out of one of those little things. Yeah. You don't mow your lawn down and then break up your leaves in the fall, and Stellar's jays will get your bees though. Those guys are smart. They'll sit right on the top of the hive in the spring when the bees are first coming out. You'll watch them and they'll just bee will come out. You rascals. They don't get that many. Yeah, they're super smart, but
They don't get bitten when they eat them?
no, they don't seem to. It's funny. The chickens never bug the bees, but my ducks. I remember ducks seem to like the bees a bit more. But yeah, maybe they do. Yeah, I don't know.
So what is exactly a bee box like? Just a
It's
box?
basically, excuse me, it's just a box with 2 hangers on the side that your frames kind of go like this, and so they just have little ends that you can hang on, and they just sit on like a little piece of wood, it's kind of like a file folder, or like a filing cabinet kind of thing, but they just kind of sit on these little things, and then you can stack them up 10, like usually have 1 or 2 for brood, which is the nest, and then anything over that's your honey boxes. And it's the exact same thing, but they'll always store honey above or to the sides.
Oh, it's not all together?
No, they'll do the nest in the middle, and then they put honey on the sides and then on the crown. So they'll bring honey from the sides to feed and stuff like that. They'll do the nest and then pollen and then honey. And so that way in the winter time, they always move up, like in the winter, like if you were to put a full box of honey below them, they'll starve to death. For some reason, they just go up in the winter into the next box, but they always crown themselves or wrap themselves in the stuff so they can access it. And it's weird, that's why small colonies, when these cold, they're really low in numbers in the spring, but you can have food, like they can have a whole bunch of honey, but if they start rearing brood, they won't leave the brood. So they'll have honey like right there, but they'll just stick with the young and then all die because they trying to keep the brood warm. So they got to have honey like close to them in the winter time.
When you start, like you just teach yourself or you
Yeah.
some courses? Yeah.
No, there was no one else at the time having any of these, so it's just learn the hard way. Yeah, for it got pretty easy though after a while. It's not. It seems like an overwhelming, but it's the hardest part is taking your first bees out of the box and putting them in your. From there, it's just watching them and it kind of teach you, you know. And you're learning not to squish them. Is a good.
Oh, it's just sad.
Well, it is. I mean, when there's 60,000 bees and you're trying to put a little. I've got it down pretty good now. Or on the lid, like there's these little shimmies that, you know, I never squish the bees. But when you're learning, yeah, and you're all like,
We're like,
yeah, you're all stoked on your bees, and it's like.
the other thing too is like if you're feeding them honey or something in the top, don't put too much because I've seen them drown.
Oh
So
yeah,
you-
they'll drown in. Yeah.
So just a little bit because they get stuck in it. And I don't know if it was honey or even just liquid sugary stuff.
I've seen them. Yeah, they you don't want to have any, like they have these feeders that are just like bee killers. They just for people. I think it's just for industrial beekeeping where they just pour in a whole bunch of sugar syrup and a feeder. But they drown pretty easy.
Do you ever have so many bees you give them away or sell them to people?
Yeah. This year probably not. I mean, last year I gave Leah, that's doing the event, some bees and given a couple bees. And I'm always into people coming and checking out the bees. That's no problem. And you know, on a good year, yeah, for sure. Yeah. This year probably just going to have to rebuild the numbers. It's one of those years, but all is not lost. Yeah. And I mean, like there are a lot of. There's some Saul Noetz on jingle pod apiaries and near Nanaimo is a great, he's like a super scientist, but he's got really good bees and he's a really fair guy.
He's still going strong.
Is he?
No, is he?
I haven't talked to him in a couple of years now, but yeah, I'd imagine so, yeah, for sure, yeah. His wife Dory. Yeah, that's the guy that's kind of my go-to, and he's great. There's one time I needed some queens. And he used to come out here and he'd show up before I even know him and this is what you gotta do right now. And but I needed some queens. He's like, oh, we're coming up to stay for a couple of days and hang out on the beaches. He's like, I'll meet you at the Canadian Princess parking lot. So I'm going to Canadian Princess parking lot. A little shady. He's old. He's probably close to 70 now, but he's got these stellar shades on. He's looking around all shady. And I go up and pulls out these two little containers out of his pocket. It looks so bad. It was classic. Like two queen bees in cages, right? But he was just turning it into a kind of like, he's just having fun with it. He's like, meet you at the Canadian Princess. It was pretty cool. But yeah, no, he's great for getting bees from, and like super fair. You know, knows his stuff. He'll go over stuff with you, and you know, I mean, you can call him at home and talk. He calls you to check in, and I also heard the bee inspector is going to be out here on the May 6th. Not for any. She just said if anyone wants to hang out or talk bees or anything, or she can come look at your bees. But it's not for any sort of.
When?
I think May 6th.
I don't have bees right now, but that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it might be neat to get.
What is a bee inspector?
It's like the bee cop.
Bee cop.
Yeah, you're supposed to have your bees registered just because it's like anything. It's like the bee version of coronavirus breaks out, you know, kind of thing. They want to be. It's agriculture, so I mean they're cool. Like if you forget to send in how many hives you have for 3 years in a row, they just put the same number you had and be like send you a thing, being like remember. And then it's always the same anyways. It's oh sorry I forgot. And they'd like you to check in every once in a while. But it's like anything, they can come at any time and you have to let them go and look through your bees. Which is good because you know if something's going wrong, they'll point it out. So I'm probably going to meet up with her. Just I knew the last two inspectors just personally from beekeeping. Larry was great, but they made him retire because of his age, which I thought was pretty. I was like, he's got twice as much knowledge that way. And then Brenda Yeager, she was really cool. She worked single-handed. The big bee wipeout on the island happened. I think Saul went from 200 hives to 2 that year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's like his livelihood. And it was like 90-some% on the island mopped out. So it was what him and Brenda did. Like they went and got all the surviving queen stock that people got through, and then just started this breeding program with those survivor stock. So that's how I met her at a queen breeding workshop. But then the new lady, I can't remember her name, so I'm gonna meet her. Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, it's 12:15 if you're planning on getting somewhere, but Chad wasn't on a timeline.
I'm not, it's just like work, yeah, how come you're late?
Is there something else going on right now?
There is food preservation at 12:30 with Erica Daly.
Oh, Erica, yeah, she's cool.
And that'll be in the kitchen downstairs here.
Yeah,
And then there's one at 1.
And Georgina is doing wildlife safe composting at 1 at the barn.
You know, Erica's good, she was doing the, at the school, the kids,
Oh.
what do they call it,
And
they used to call that.
Is that for today?
Cooking class or.
Sunday.
Oh,
Yes. There's also Connie's doing the growing year round.
That's
on
what
post
I want, that's one.
From 1
That's
to
at
3.
1.
And that's here.
And that's here.
Oh, okay,
So we
great.
do have to clear
I have to go see
soon.
somebody.
Yeah, no problem, I'm good, and I mean, people can get in touch with me, or if you're late and you wanna know anything, you can chat, no problem. And yeah, feel free to,
Sometimes, I mean, I've seen these, I can't think of the name, they look like little birdhouses and they've got like
those are the
these wooden
mason,
straw
those are
things.
the,
Oh, yeah.
those
What
are
are
the
they?
mason bee houses.
Interested in that.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
good thing. What do they do?
pollinate like crazy.
they're OCS
See, they-
members.
Yeah, they're great pollinators, they're little
So they
messy.
pollinate and then the honeybees have honey and the
Yeah, the mason
don't?
bees just don't make honey,
Oh,
but they do like all the good stuff that honeybee does, but I think they're even more efficient at it.
Mm.
But then there's, yeah.
Are those nice
They're
bees
made
to
in
have?
bamboo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to get.
Oh, yeah, it takes up no space, you can have them anywhere, no one gets stung, or,
Oh,
yeah, it's like having, yeah, it's the same, they do the exact same and probably better work, but they're just different type of bee.
Can they live like multiple years?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Huh.
And I mean, they're everywhere, right, like I was saying about just leaving wood around, they're everywhere anyways too, but you can have like a nice little spot for them too and make it a little better for them.
They're
You can,
particular.
what's
Like,
that?
you have to hibernate them particularly though. That's.
They do that on their own, they just need the spot to do it, yeah.
Okay, I guess some people are
They put them in the
over
fridge.
particular to make sure they don't get eaten by a parasitic wasp or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, there might be, yeah, it's probably all on,
You like little cocoons, I don't know.
I find those things all the time under, I don't know, remember shingles or anything like that, they make a,
Huh.
yeah, they'll nest almost like all over the place, but, yeah, those little houses are, you probably just Google how to take care of them, or they probably comes with but I think it's pretty maintenance free.
Easy to make your own too. Just
Yeah, that's
drill,
yeah. Just
drill
need
the
a
right.
drill hole, or drill it basically.
It just has to be the right size hole.
Oh.
There you go.
And then the local bees will populate it? If
Oh,
they
yeah,
make it?
yeah, they'll move in, it'll be
In
like
the back.
new resort. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you were thinking about starting honeybees, what would be the best things to like make sure you have or make sure your area
Well,
has?
Any area is great, pretty much, yeah. I mean, you'd want to make sure that, you know, if you probably would want a little bit of a veil or something just first, so for your confidence. Smoker helps for sure with bees. You don't need a smoker, but it just, right away, like it mellows them right out. So it's handy, you can get your work done. And then build your boxes, get your bees. Yeah, it's pretty simple, yeah. And then it's really humbling, so don't be upset if your bees die. Like, first year, you know, because it's like if you just have a couple like things, like you could do everything perfect, and it's just that year that didn't work out or something happened. It's like I was saying, like
It's like gardening.
yeah, it's the same thing. It's like the biggest beekeeper on the island goes from like 200 to 2, and that's he's been doing it for like his whole life, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't take it hard, and it's like, you know, it's just. And then it's like, yeah, it's just like gardening. And then next thing he goes like, what do I do with all these bees? Yeah.
You said that humidity is really bad for them, isn't it?
It's not good for them. Yeah.
And is there
Not so
any-
much the humidity, just when the hive gets full of moisture. I started using smaller boxes in winter because the bees will go from like these massive hives of like 60,000 down to like, so 20 frames of bees down to like 5 frames of bees for the winter. So I started putting them in smaller boxes for winter time, because then the combs, you know how combs hold honey? Well, if you pull out of a hive, if the bees aren't on that, it'll absorb the moisture. You could shake out like 4 liters out of one comb. So I just kind of took away all the space for water, less space for water.
Right.
So I'd wait till they're going in to kind of know what size they're going in for winter cluster. And then I kind of started putting them in smaller boxes. And plus the smaller boxes are easier to lift. Like instead of lifting 100 pounds, you can lift 30 pounds. And yeah, a big box full of honey is it's like back-breaking. So smaller boxes are great. You just have to stack them up higher. And so the big boxes are usually like 10 frames, but you can have 5-frame boxes, no problem.
And is there any, no, it was about is there any way you can build your box to prevent the humidity or something? Is there anything else you can do?
Well, I always have mine so that you can have this kind of you want a bit of airflow. So I take in the wintertime, I'd have like a little shim box that's only about that thick with a screen on the bottom with a bunch of wood chips in there so air can get through, but it stays dry. But then my bee entrance, put up top because all the humidity and moisture is going to go at the top of the kind of in the front of the roof, and then also the sun hits that earlier in the day. So you guys, so that's a good way. Yeah, it just keeps it, having the bottom with some airflow and then something in there to keep them dry.
The ring was in.
Well, they got a lid over top, and then I always put like an extra bit of plywood on top, just to kind of, I should build them on. You see all those like funky houses people have made. It's like, geez, people got too much time on this. It's like a little doll house, and they all got like individual little shingles on like a roof and soffits and gutters. And just like, holy moly. Yeah, you can go as simple as just building a box, and as crazy as you want with it, kind of thing. It's super fun.
And it's just like frames that.
Yeah, you can buy the frames and the frames they just use in the wild. I think they build all sorts of weird funky comb, but I think legally you're supposed to have them on frames in case for health issues that, like I said, the bee inspector you can manage them that way. Otherwise, you couldn't pull them out. But yeah, it's just like trays. And then
what's in the frame?
You can use nothing, and you can take a popsicle stick on the top and like put it in there and a little bit of beeswax, and the bees will draw their own comb and they'll wire through for support. Or you can get foundation, which most beekeepers, it's just they have like those candle making beeswax kind of thing, something similar to that but with a different pattern, and then the bees just draw off that on both sides. Or you can just buy plastic ones, which are great because you can scrape them down and reuse them. The bees, they're just plastic with it's basically the template for their combs, and so it's just a little, the plastic one's pretty good, bees take to them pretty good, and then they just cover it with wax. You don't even know that there's plastic there. But yeah, they'll make their own. You could just make the frame empty, but you want some sort of, I've used fishing wire or fishing line to go through, because just a little bit of support, that much, they'll fill the whole thing with the wax. But if you don't have that wire and you pick it up and are looking at it around and stuff, could fall out, and then they don't like that. Yeah, they get really grumpy when that happens.
But it just stays on like the one frame, it doesn't go over to the other frames? Or?
No, they're pretty good. Every once in a while up top they'll link them with, they call it burr comb. See you later, Bob.
Yeah.
And they'll link stuff together like bridge stuff. So when you're doing your inspection, you're breaking that apart, but it's no big deal for them. They don't, And that's why I like going into the bees when I have them like every couple of weeks at the latest, just so that they don't make their. Once you break a spot, they're like, oh, we're not supposed to build there. I think. So, but yeah, they don't mind.